Usually, churches are sought out when the faithful seek guidance and counsel from a pastor, priest, or any other religious leader through faith, and for this reason, the place is generally calm and full of peace. However, it's worth noting that churches aren't always synonymous with peace and tranquility. There are many accounts and records of situations that occurred inside churches that went beyond all previously seen limits. That's exactly what we'll see here today. During a service in an evangelical church, a pastor ended up using very offensive and embarrassing terms to refer to the story of Adam and Eve. In his sermon, he starts talking about Adam and Eve, but ends up using language considered derogatory when mentioning their relationship. The shocked faces of the faithful in the background are quite noticeable and even become amusing.
Irmão, quando Adão come Eva, percebe que não morre, porque ele pensou que morria no físico, Adão morreu no espírito.
Even seeing the astonishment of the congregation, the pastor didn't back down and continued his sermon as if nothing had happened. The service was being recorded, and the moment ended up spreading on the internet. A different and strange baptism method that's been drawing attention involves people performing it semi-nude, wearing only swimwear like trunks and bikinis. In many recordings made and shared on the internet, we can see this type of baptism, which for many ends up being quite uncomfortable and goes against what the church preaches. According to many faithful, the most common baptism is where people immerse in water fully clothed to avoid embarrassing themselves and those around them. But, as we can see, in many places, it doesn't work that way. The baptism of a child in the church ended up gaining attention and generating a big discussion on the internet. In the footage of the baptism, we can see the priest taking the child and moving them brusquely. Moreover, he submerged the child in the water, sometimes upright and other times upside down, spinning the child, who was clearly completely frightened and cried due to the bizarre situation. The scene is so bizarre that it becomes funny. Some family members who didn't know how the baptism was performed by the priest were also shocked, while the child remained screaming. During a baptism in a church, a woman ended up entering the place and began to offend the priest who was conducting the ceremony. She attacked the priest with offensive words, and the religious leader retorted by also cursing her and telling her to leave, but she didn't obey. The priest then got irritated and went after the woman, throwing the baptismal water on her and assaulting her. People present helped to restrain the angry priest. The woman was removed from the place by the people, and the moment, which was being recorded, ended up spreading. According to information, the priest had taken over the parish about a month and a half prior, but ended up being suspended because of the situation. A Latina pastor ended up gaining some fame on the internet after being recorded during a church service. In the footage, we can see a very beautiful woman who consequently attracts a lot of attention. Therefore, many people ended up sharing and saying that with a pastor like that, it's hard to pay attention to the service and keep a firm mind. Many started jokingly calling her the devil's pastor after all. When you go to church to stay away from bad things, the pastor appears, awakening temptation or sin. A man ran into a church in Tenerife, Spain, and scared the faithful who were gathered for Mass. He was carrying a boy in his arms, and upon invading the altar of the Christian temple, he climbed the structure supporting the image of Our Lady of Mount Carmel and placed the boy seated at the feet of the statue of the saint. In the video of the incident, you can see the man, who was wearing a white shirt, shorts, and flip-flops, bursting into the place. In a state of complete euphoria, he runs down the central aisle of the temple, dodges the acolytes conducting the Mass, and almost knocks over the altar to then place what would be his son seated on the altar. The man even tried more than once to run away from the place, but was stopped by the faithful who witnessed the case. There isn't much information about the man's motivation, but rumors said that it was a promise being fulfilled since the boy had been cured of a disease. But remember that nothing is official. Yet again, during a baptism conducted during a church service, we can see the moment when the faithful being baptized panics upon being submerged in water. In the footage, we can see him struggling, and as a result, he simply grabs the pastor beside him, pulls him, and almost causes him to drown as well. Seeing the scene, people present at the service get up to help the pastor, while others assisted the still frightened man. The pastor who is pulled underwater falls into the water fully clothed, staying there bewildered in a scene that becomes quite funny. A bizarre and embarrassing recording shows a pastor singing and saying unusual things during her sermon. Just the fact that she's singing haphazardly, without worrying about rhythm and tuning, would already be quite strange. But in addition, she uses very heavy and invasive words in her musical lyrics. Upon seeing that, many faithful stood up and left the church. Others began to laugh, and some resilient ones remained.
Apimente a relação, saia do papai e da mamãe. Em nome de Jesus, vai pra galinha assada. Hoje todo mundo vai como galinha assada, método canguru.
As we can see, the pastor talks about playing at dating and gives tips through the song about sexual positions that women should do with their partners. The names she gives to these positions are completely heavy and offensive, hence the outrage. An unusual and even frightening scene was recorded during the celebration of a Mass. The priest was delivering his homily normally when he ended up saying the following phrase, "If we take away the cross of Jesus Christ." At that exact moment, a piece of the wooden structure of the cross of the image of Jesus Christ in the church falls and hits a minister's head, leaving everyone silent for a few seconds. The priest is startled since his words literally had force, but despite the scare, everything was fine with the minister.
Tirarmos a cruz de Cristo. Foi mal colado.
What eased the tension of the moment and made things a bit lighter and funnier was the priest's comment right after the wood fell, where he says it was poorly glued and then resumes his speech as if nothing had happened. A scene starring an altar boy inside a church shows the moment when he ends up letting his hair catch fire. The incident happened in the city of Teixeira de Freitas, in the extreme south of Bahia, Brazil, where during the Christmas celebration, at the moment of the gospel reading, the unsuspecting altar boy touched the candle to his own hair. Luckily for him, the priest quickly noticed and extinguished the fire with his hand, where few noticed, and the gospel reading wasn't even interrupted due to the priest's quick action, who started being called the firefighter priest.
Eu vos anuncio uma grande alegria, Deus será para todo o povo.
Another altar boy who was beside him also notices, but the fire is quickly put out. Surely the young man had some hair burned by the fire, but the important thing is that nothing serious happened and the fire didn't spread. A baptism that was taking place in the village of Santa Cruz in the municipality of Propria in Sergipe, Brazil, ended in confusion. Shouting, the priest, identified as Roni, expelled one of the godfathers and refused to perform the baptism of one of the children. The godfather was Gleidson Alves, and after the priest said he wouldn't baptize the child, Gleidson tried to argue but was reprimanded and expelled from the church without further ado. In an interview with a local news portal, Gleidson said that the confusion began after the priest asked him for the child's full name who was going to be baptized, and he had to confirm with his wife, the child's godmother. Everyone deals with their fears as they can, but for a young girl, not even all the devotion and focus on her work was able to overlook an unexpected visitor in a church. A video circulating on social media shows the girl singing during a religious live stream. With her eyes closed and focused on her mission, it took just a small moment of attention to notice that a cockroach was crawling on the floor of the sacred space. Desperate, the song is forcibly ended, making way for a scramble. The girl disappears from the recording screen, and two other guys who were accompanying the work in the church enter the scene to help her, neutralizing a poor and tiny cockroach that was probably much more frightened than everyone there. Although it doesn't have teeth to bite or a stinger to sting, cockroaches are insects that cause fear and panic because they live in sewers, are dirty, and mainly because they can fly erratically, often heading towards people. During the celebration of a mass in a parish in Ceará, Brazil, the priest ended up getting into an argument and telling a man to shut up. According to information, the man, who was intoxicated, arrived at the place and started talking very loudly, disturbing and disrespecting the people who were there. And that's why the priest decided to take such action.
Pedir meu irmãozinho aí que fique quietinho. Quem vai estar agora no comando sou eu, viu? Nós não estamos no auditório de piadas, não. Se você não quer ficar na celebração, vai para sua casa.
In the recording made of the celebration, we can see the priest asking the man to stay quiet, and that if he didn't want to be there, he could go home. However, the man persists in causing a scene. And irritated, the priest tells him to shut up several times in a louder tone. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.